My dad has the B license extension 111 and he's currently looking for a bike. So is the Benda Rock 125 a motorcycle I'd recommend to him? The answer's in this video. Yes, the Benda Rock 125 is, as I've already mentioned, a motorcycle you're allowed to ride in Germany with the B111 or B196. In other words, it's a 125. And when I hear that and then look at this bike, I can hardly believe it, because the way this Benda stands there, I have to say, it's unbelievable. The Benda fits into this 125 cruiser category. There are a few, but not that many to choose from, and most of them are from the Far East, just like the Benda, a relatively young brand from China, now entering the European market with loads of wild ideas. I only recently tested the LFC 700, a cruiser with an inline 4-cylinder and a 310 rear tire. The Rock 125 isn't quite that crazy, but it still impressed me. And why that is, I'm going to tell you now. Let's start with the heart of the bike. As you can clearly see, there's a V-twin engine hanging in the frame, and that's what already makes this Benda quite special. I've tested a bike in this class before with a V-twin, but the V-twin in the Benda is one I really like, even just when starting it up. All these 125 bikes with a maximum of 15 horsepower usually sound really tinny, because we're only talking about 1/8 of a liter, a single cylinder. You can't expect too much. But with the Rock 125 and its V-twin, there's actually quite a lot coming out. The engine, even when I start it, has this lovely deep rumble. And then when I'm cruising along, I can tell there's more than just one cylinder beneath me. It's a V-twin. Of course, you shouldn't expect a Harley sound, but it's still more than what you normally get in this class. Even when accelerating out on a country road, everything feels a bit more substantial, which brings more riding joy. And above all, more of that cruiser vibe. Speaking of accelerating, a quick look at the performance figures. We've got 14 horsepower and 14.5 Newton meters of torque here. That's still not exactly mind-blowing, even if it looks like it is. An A1 bike, you've got to ride it actively. Especially when you're heading uphill, you really can't be in the wrong gear, or you'll just stall and even start losing speed. So you've got to keep the revs relatively high. Sure, that takes away from that typical laid-back cruiser feeling where you just want to glide along. But if you want to make decent progress on country roads, you'll need to drop a few gears, accelerate hard, and shift at around 10,000 RPM. I could rev the engine up to 11,000, but to be honest, not much more happens after 10. But if you keep it around 10,000, it moves along nicely. Yes, it starts to vibrate more and gets a bit louder, but once you've hit your pace again, you can stick it in 6th gear and cruise, and the Benda does that really well. Speaking of cruising, what about top speed? That's always a thing with A1 bikes. So today, going slightly downhill with a bit of a tailwind and homesickness for good measure, I hit about 100 kilometers per hour. I'm not exactly the lightest guy either. So I'd say an average person will probably top out somewhere between 95 and 100 kilometers per hour. In 6th gear, you're already close to the limit. Still, I was surprised how well the vibrations were kept in check. You can actually cruise at top speed without it being uncomfortable. Very unusual for this class is the belt drive. You do see that on cruisers now and then, but hardly ever on 125s. Definitely worth mentioning. Also surprising was the suspension, because when it comes to cruisers, I don't usually expect too much. But here we've got upside down forks at the front and twin shocks at the rear, and that gave the Benda a genuinely decent ride feel. Of course, the suspension travel is limited, but if you are just cruising along, it works really well. I was especially impressed on country roads. The ride quality of this budget-friendly cruiser from China is actually very decent. The Benda feels nice and planted, very smooth through the bends, and even when you pick up the pace, there's no sense of instability. Everything feels very solid, a great setup for a cruiser like this. The only thing I noticed out on the country roads that I might criticize a little is the braking. It's got a CBS system, even though it looks like it has ABS at the front with the sensor ring. That's just for speed sensing. It's only CBS fitted here. And I noticed the front brake needs quite a bit of finger strength to really get some bite. So if you also brake with the rear, you're on the safe side. That's really all there is to say about the brakes. Nothing major. Single disc, nothing special for this class, fine. But yeah, the front could do with a bit less effort. What I really liked was the ergonomics. Seat height is 720 millimeters, very low. I'm 1.75 meters tall with rather short legs. But when I sit myself on the rock, I like the typical cruiser seating position. My legs are nicely stretched forward, but not so much that it gets tricky with shorter legs. The handlebars are insanely wide, which gives me a great feel for the road. And what really surprised me, thanks to the wide bars, the bar and mirrors give me an excellent rear view. Normally you just see your elbows, but not on the Benda. Rear visibility is sorted. In front of me, I've got a 16-liter tank, actual metal. Same goes for the rear mudguard. We'll get to the build quality in a moment. I also see an LC display. I'd call it functional, nothing more. It shows my speed, fuel level and revs, but there's not much more info to get from it, and it's not particularly nice to look at. Especially on a lifestyle cruiser like this, I'd expect something more attractive, maybe analog gauges. The controls are familiar, probably the same supplier used by many Chinese manufacturers. Nothing special though, they are backlit, but I'd still only call them functional. Same with the levers, they're not adjustable, but they feel good to the touch. Speaking of which, let's talk build quality, because Benda, to be fair, is one of those Chinese brands that's doing a really good job. Looking at panel gaps, the materials used, metal tank, metal rear fender, and all the bolt points, everything looks clean and well put together. Nice to look at, and honestly a real highlight are the wheels, partly polished, the rest in black. Looks good and really suits a cruiser that's clearly got a lifestyle focus. A bit unusual is the rear setup, which is actually the only angle of the bike I don't like. Under the pillion seat is a slim LED rear light strip and brake light, while the indicators sit just above the number plate. Not really my thing, but maybe others will like it. If you do, let us know in the comments. That little rear light, I find it impractical. If someone's sitting behind you and they've got a bigger bum or a longer jacket, it could end up covering the light, which means it won't be visible. As for the pillion seat, it's quite long, so there's actually plenty of space. The only issue is with the limited engine power, you'll probably hit the limits if you plan to go on longer trips. But I think this bike is more made for quick rides with your other half, popping out for an ice cream, something like that. So, final verdict. Did the Benda convince me? Yes and no. Would I recommend it to my dad as a 125 bike? I'd honestly have to say yes, it looks great, aside from a few small details, but that's just personal taste. The engine has a really lovely sound, and the overall handling is so smooth and easy, guiding me gently through the bends. It's just spot on. I was also surprised at how much lean angle I had. I didn't scrape anything. The only bitter pill is the price. The Benda Rock 125 costs 4,999 euros. That's alright for the A1 class. But if you look at other cruisers from the Far East that you can ride with B111 or B196, that puts it more towards the upper end. And that's something you'll have to be willing to pay. And of course, you've got to consider that Benda is just arriving in Europe now. So what's the dealer network like around you? Do you even have a local dealer? To wrap it up, yes, the Benda Rock impressed me. Yes, I would recommend it to my dad. Because honestly, I see this bike with an older gentleman, someone who wants a more relaxed ride, who's no longer looking at super sport bikes in this 125 segment, someone who just wants to cruise to the cafe, maybe go for an evening spin and enjoy life. That's it from me and the Benda Rock 125. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up, give my mate behind the camera a thumbs up, we'd appreciate it. And let us know what you think of the bike in the comments, we'd love to hear your opinion. All that's left to say is thanks for watching, see you soon, cheers and bye bye.